I will call the
Mathis or chairman of it.
finance meeting to order, and the first order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from December the 4th.
Move approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Okay, I really wanted to talk to Corey before we do the appropriate the budgets, and he left and will be coming back, I think. So let's handle a couple other things first. Adam McQueen from Community Corrections, he looked at his 25 budget, and what he had turned in and what actually says in the budget in Lao is a little bit different. So he needs to just move some money around between different line items here to make it come out like it was supposed to be. And he has the money, it's all just changing it around. So we've got a transfer of $12,612.66 to health insurance, 13670, from 10473, the probation officer's salary. 442360 probation officer to 357250 part-time bookkeeper, and 10102 program director 3712. I think what he's doing is transferring that 12,000, and those other three amounts equal that. It's a little confusing the way it's written here. So we just need a motion to transfer those amounts to make his budget look right.
I'll make the motion to move those, make the transfers that you
Second.
just read.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's none. Motion passes. Now we have two things on here listed as transfers, but there actually need to be claims for these two things from the council's budget. We have $60,000 to fund the 4D, Fund 8895, and then we have $500,000 to fund the health department from 3,400. So those two things we don't really have to vote on, that we just need a claim made for those two items, and so that we can get them paid to those funds, because you don't transfer money in and out of funds, you have to actually pay them. Okay, Corey's back. That's amazing timing. Before we get into the appropriations, can you tell us, do you have a budget made up for your jury pay?
Yes, and I turned that in.
You did. Okay, I just didn't get it. Do you have anything else you need to explain to us? Okay, so he inadvertently doesn't have a budget for his jury pay. We covered it last year, so we need to approve the budget for
2503.
2503. What is that? It's $40,000, right?
No.
No, it's not. What is it?
I turned this in back on December the 4th. The request is for $125,000 for the court services, jury per diem, and that's 33,011 in Fund 2503, sorry.
Yeah.
And 25,000 in the Superior 3 per diem, which is 33,010. So 150,000 total.
Oh, okay.
And we did increase that a little bit just so we didn't have to come back like we did
This,
for last year,
okay.
just to be sure.
So,
And this has been advertised.
I can't answer that.
Bobby, yeah, I was gonna say, I need some proof of publication of that.
I'm looking to see if I can find exactly how much I advertised.
So I think we need to probably open a hearing since it's an appropriate.
We will. I just wanted him to explain the budget first.
Yeah, it's just those two line items.
Okay, so it's
I turned in the form which for the appropriation, and I turned in the long budget form and
Okay.
the traditional form.
Let me look at the appropriation. See, what was advertised, I do believe, if it's what's on this paper, was only $40,000 for the 2503.
That was for last year.
That was what we just gave you to finish it out,
Correct.
not the entire budget. So we'll have to not do that one today. We're gonna have to advertise that, and can we have that done by workshop? So it'll have to be the first meeting in February. Is that gonna cause a problem?
Go ahead and appropriate the 40,000 and split.
We
that.
could appropriate the 40,000 if you need to use that line item.
I assume there's some jury trials
Yeah,
coming up
yeah,
and
we
jurors
better
will want
do that.
paid. I know Superior 3 had a line item in their county general budget that could be used for backup, but I don't believe without looking that the court services did. So that may be the safer route.
Do we have a motion to approve his budget of $150,000?
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. So when I appropriate all the money, we're only going to do 40,000 now. And we'll
Okay.
have to advertise for 110 for the first meeting in February. We'll get you covered somehow.
And then that 40,000, is that broken, is that in the court services fund technically?
Yep, it's the 33011 Pettit Juror.
011, okay, that's the court services budget. So that'll work because Judge Cox in Superior 3 would have the county general line he could pay, and he actually has less jury trials, so that should work.
That works out for a month. All right, thank you.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, with all that being settled, I will open a public hearing to talk about.
Sorry, Alex here, did you already take care of
We
it?
already took care of yours. It was just transfers to make your budget come out right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
Amy
align with
explained
the
it.
ordinance.
and we did that.
Will I need to come back for a second? Or that's, okay,
You're good.
all right, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
We'll open a public hearing to discuss the appropriation of county edit, consolidated edit, tourism, ARPA, and the jury pay fund. Any comments? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There are none. So now we just need to have a motion to appropriate. Do you all have a copy of the funds? It's attached to the agenda.
You're right. Mr. Speaker, please.
Did you need to say something, Mr. Plaster?
I'm afraid so.
Okay.
Nothing in particular, there's a couple of those appropriations. One for the ARPA funds that I need to give you an explanation, and then I believe we can reduce the consolidated edit appropriation if you choose to by $25,000. But how do you want to do this? You want to start at the top and just work our way
Sure.
down? So if you have questions on the county edit, the $1 million is what we moved out of ARPA because we weren't ready to get it committed contractually. And we've talked about putting that in county edit. The downtown revitalization match, again, we discussed last year. This is match for a new grant that is being applied for under the READY program that the state IEDC is running. And then the land bank, $100,000 is actually part of that same grant. So a total of $600,000 in match money that would be met with $600,000 additional out of consolidated edit for a grant total of $3 million that's being requested. Can answer any questions that you might have of those different line items, but that's the request, $1.6 million in those lines for county edit.
Approve these one at a time.
We can.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none.
So the next is consolidated edit. And as you look down that list, I know the print's kind of small, but the first line is
DC's budget.
the operating budget for the EDC, support for ERPC. The Ball State University line is our dues for SBDC. The commitment for the county for EDC for the interlocal agreement with GIS. The help program dollars that are committed through consolidated edit are there, the next two lines. Richmond Sanitary District, we agreed with putting in $1 million for the engineering for the industrial park sewer, the city industrial park sewer. Liberation Labs, that's an incentive package, $2 million. We committed last year, maybe even in '23, for the incentive for the Elder Beerman project. Make My Move, that's the second year contract, so that will be finalized this year. Richmond Beverage Solutions, again, is an incentive grant. Transcendia, an incentive grant. Housing Acceleration, is a $500,000 commitment of consolidated funds that mirrors the $1 million housing accelerator that you saw in the county edit. The Intend Indiana is the land bank that we've talked about, and that is a $200,000 contract over 5 years, which would be paid 50% by the county, 50% by consolidated edit, at $40,000 a year. So I suppose technically the whole thing doesn't need to be committed right now in either of those budgets, but it at least lets us know that we have committed those dollars, and I think that makes sense, even though it's over 5 years. HWC Engineering, the countywide planning project, which was actually the line that has already been paid out to the Wayne County Foundation, and that can be removed. And then the Downtown Revitalization Program match contribution that we talked about in the county edit above. So this is the match from consolidated edit. We don't have the total.
There's no
Number, do
totals
you
on
have
this
it?
sheet. No, there's no totals on any of this. Well, there's a couple.
So you're requesting everything on this list other than the HWC?
Except for
Yeah, they've done
the
the
$25,000 for HWC Engineering.
You have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none.
So the tourism budget is what you discussed with Mary Walker last fall. This is broken down exactly as she submitted it, and you also have the operating budget for the EDC when Valerie came in and discussed that with you, broken down line by line. So I don't have anything to add to the tourism budget.
Do you have a motion to approve tourism budget? To appropriate it?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none.
The ARPA fund. I gave you copies of this spreadsheet. That's a little more legible than this one, so. And there have been a couple of changes, although the The bottom line is we're reducing the amount of the request. So if you look at this spreadsheet that I gave you, and sorry. So the first line, column to the left is the project. The column C, it's listed, the Wayne County budget amount. This is how much we committed originally. Column D was the final estimate. Column E includes what we have spent and changes that have been incorporated into that line item. And then clear to the right is the recommended budget that we would ask you to appropriate. If you look down at the bottom, the total is $6,369,184.54. That is the actual balance in the ARPA fund at the end of the year as of now. And so we could not appropriate what is listed as committed. Remember, we purposefully wanted to overcommit so that we didn't end up being short and spending short and sending money back to the Treasury. And so we overcommitted in some of those line items. So what I'm recommending, and I talked to Barry about this, is that's highlighted in yellow. The $2,499,095 is what's left to be spent on the agreed-on budget amount for the radio project. I'm recommending that we take all of the overage out of that line item, reduce it to $2,250,047, recognizing that on some of these we could allocate different amounts to different line items, but we're going to have to pay for some of this out of other funds. We know that because we only have $6,369,000 and change in the ARPA fund. So let's put it all in one place so that we don't have to account for a few dollars in each of those line items and try to guess where they may end up. We're pretty confident that if there is, in fact, any amount that'll be left over, it would be in the radio line item in that project. And so that's why we're recommending taking all of that out of that line item and appropriating the numbers in the column on the far right, column H.
Jeff and I did have a conversation about additional savings in that radio project, and there is the potential for that. And knowing that we needed to spend these ARPA dollars, I support that move to go ahead and reduce that line item, understanding that if there is a contingency, that we'll just have to fund that from somewhere else.
Exactly. And remember, we've got that $2 million in the general fund that we've spent ARPA other projects on, and this would be the highest priority other than the elevator project. But we need to complete all these projects, even if they cost a few dollars more than we have budgeted here. Again, I don't think any of them will, other than potentially the radio project, because we took all that $250,000 out of that line item. But whatever additional needs to be spent can come out of that $2 million that's in the general fund.
And even if we have to spend a little bit of extra, look at what we got done.
Exactly.
I mean,
This is a huge
yeah,
list of projects.
yeah. It's amazing.
And this is just the ones that are not yet done.
Yeah.
We've completed a bunch of them.
So like
Sure, go ahead.
just a little over 249,000 and you're reducing it. What are you going to do with that money?
Sorry.
The money you're reducing it by, what are you going to do with that money? What do you plan on doing?
We're reducing it because that number, the lower right-hand number, $6,369,000, is all that is in the ARPA fund.
Okay,
So when we spend that, ARPA fund will be zero.
okay.
So we're not doing anything with that $250,000 other than part of it at least, we'll have to pay for out of the general fund.
Cannot appropriate more than what's in the fund.
Correct.
Anybody have any more questions for Jeff?
Need a motion to appropriate $6,369,184.54 of ARPA money
Correct. To these line items.
to the line items.
Second.
Go ahead.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for
I
all your hard
realize
work.
that, that's
This is a lot.
it's a very brief discussion for appropriating almost $6.5 million, but we've been talking about this for 3 years now, so
Don't say it's not that great, Jeff.
thank you very much.
Jeff, in
Yes.
reality, we probably will not spend all that during 2025.
Some of it could slip into 2026. The projects have to be completed by the end of '26. I think most of them will be done in '25, but we do have that hard and fast deadline that we need to meet, and that'll be the commissioners and Steve's job to make sure that that happens in a timely way.
Jeff, I got this.
Oh, great, thank you.
Okay, we've appropriated all the budgets that need funded this year. So, does anyone have anything else that they need to bring up for finance?
I want to go back to the 500,000 that you're putting from the county, I think it's council's budget into the health department. That's not a transfer of appropriation, that's a transfer of cash.
We're doing a claim.
Well,
think
I have
we're
a-
not in here.
There is a transfer request that I'm partially filled out. If you want to sign it, and I'll finish filling it out as to where the money goes in the health department. Because there's a line item in the health department we have to show the money coming into, and that's why it can't be on a claim. It has to be a transfer of money, not on a claim.
I thought to move money from
Between
one
funds,
budget
yeah.
to another budget had to be a claim versus a
It's not,
transfer.
it's going from one fund to another one.
It's going from the county
It goes
general
from
fund.
the county general account fund
Yeah,
until up and into the health department fund.
Which is a separate.
It's just a bookkeeping difference that is not an appropriation. We're not transferring,
We're not appropriating, we just said
we're just doing a claim to pay it.
and so therefore it's a transfer of funds, not a claim basis transfer of appropriation.
So you can just do it as a journal entry? Is that what you're saying? And not actually have a check written?
I don't need a claim to do this. What I need is your signature on a transfer. And then we can do it now. If it's a claim basis, you're gonna wait.
We can do that because it's just a journal entry instead of a check. So I can sign that.
I would move we approve that transfer.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
But the other one marked for
60,000?
$88.95 is a check, correct?
$88.95 needs to be a claim though, right?
There is a state policy that talks,
Yeah, for
that
40,
addresses
Yeah, you
that.
can't transfer that, it has to be a
Okay.
check.
Okay. I can sign that.
For you.
So, that's all we have. Our next meeting's February 5th at 8 a.m. And our Commissioner Council Workshop is on January 15th at 6 p.m. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none.